Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
So, I love attorneys. My son's an attorney, so some people don't like attorneys, but you know, when you need an attorney, you love the attorney. And we've been dealing with a terrific company. Well, it's an organization called Senior Justice. And they have, I don't know where they find these terrific young men. Of course, the first person we ever met was Michael. And Michael brought on his brother.
Correct.
And now you're there. So between the three of you, I'm sure you do a very good job. But, you know, why don't we start off with how your firm differs from other legal firms?
Sure. And Anita, thank you for having us and having Michael and David and I on the show. What separates us is our experience in this area of law. The nursing home litigation sector is very specialized, very complex, and it's important that you have the right attorneys to pursue a lawsuit here in the state of Florida. So that's what separates us from other personal injury firms or just firms here in the local community.
I see. So it is a very specialized kind of firm. You do help seniors all the time, and I know that. But probably you're helping their families more than the seniors. I think that's the way it works, doesn't it?
You're exactly right. And unfortunately, I wish it was the reverse, because we really truly represent the victims and their families, the wrongful death victims. So I would say 9 out of 10 times we are actually speaking with the families themselves, the surviving spouse, the surviving children that have now brought this preventable tragedy to our front door. And they are looking to us for guidance to pursue a claim against either a nursing home, an assisted living facility, a hospital, or anything in between.
And I'm just going to ask you, and of course it's a very frank question because I know that you did work in nursing homes before. Are all, and I'm using the word all, are all accidents preventable?
Gosh, that's a good question. I would say the majority of them are. And I would say probably the vast majority of them are preventable, especially in the nursing home context, because we have such a higher level of care. We have assisted living facilities, which I would like to touch on later today, that present several issues that we're dealing with on the front lines, that lower level of care. And then you have those nursing homes that are entrusted with protecting just the client's well-being in general. They really are looking to the nursing home to protect them. And then of course you have hospitals, which you believe would protect and prevent these tragedies as you just talked about. But it really is a case-by-case basis, and hospitals and facilities are all not the same. It really just depends on the facts that we're presented with, and we really try to show the other side, the defense lawyers, which I used to be, why this was a preventable incident or a preventable tragedy.
Well, you don't know this about me, but I actually am a gerontologist. And for years, even though I started the Boomer Times, I've been doing the radio, I made a lot of speeches at the nursing homes. I was really a part of that whole industry. And then I saw something happening because there were a lot of problems there, but then I guess fortunately, they didn't have as many people in the nursing home. So they went to rehab centers now. They became rehab centers because they had a lot of facility there. So the rehab centers, I always thought, would be people of your age and maybe a little bit older, knees, hips, and shoulders. Right. But now they're really taking care of a lot of the people who would be in nursing homes otherwise. Do you not agree with that?
I do agree with that, and that's interesting. I had no idea that was part of your background, and it's great that you're able to connect with your viewers and our listeners today and bring that experience here to the front lines. We see mostly rehab facilities, outpatient rehab facilities that are connected somehow, some way to these nursing home facilities. It's a deeper dive. You have to dig and do a lot of discovery, but you see a lot of the incidents in those preventable tragedies that we talked about before, just preventable falls, bed sores that are happening under these quote-unquote rehab facilities, because there's that stigma against nursing homes. We don't want to put our loved ones in a nursing home. And now we see a lot of our clients being shifted and kind of lured towards rehab facilities and quote-unquote assisted living facilities. So that is really interesting that you have that background.
Well, the other thing, Will, is that people, no matter where they go, whether it's a rehab center, a nursing home, or a assisted living, they think that everyone's going to take care of them. And unfortunately, the families or whoever is the loved one, they don't understand what an advocacy role is. No matter how good an organization is or how bad, you need to have an advocate there. And you, as a lawyer, you're not the advocate. You're the after the advocate didn't do what they were supposed to do.
Right.
So I think a lot of things could be saved if advocates were there watching. And I think when we, I think it was the last interview that we had with
David, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it was David. I'm not sure it was Michael or David, but we did talk about that. That it's if you went and you saw your family member and you examined them, you held their hand, you saw if there were more bruises, or I know maybe they want to be very independent, but they're not independent at this point. And if you were more of an advocate, I think there'd be less lawsuits.
I agree with you, and I wish that we had the opportunity, and part of the reasons why I love having these opportunities to tell our viewers that these are preventable and that we can reach them before something terrible happens. But you're exactly right, 9 times out of 10, I keep saying that, but it's true, that it's too late. Someone has already passed on, someone has already broken a hip, someone already has a bed sore or a pressure ulcer because they've been allowed to sit in bed for too long. And once the horse is out of the barn, it's almost impossible to bring it back in. So that is a very good point that you've made.
And that's why your firm, and I, knowing the two brothers as I do, it's a wonderful firm because you're not there, as they used to call ambulance chasers. You're really not there. You're there because someone has really suffered. And you can not only help the person who suffered, but you may be able to help that facility to beware in the future and to do something to avoid what you find.
You're exactly right. And if we can't initiate a lawsuit, what we can do is be that advocate that you've talked about and touched on so nicely before, to report them to a state agency. Because although our clients do not come to us, and I really truly believe this, Anita, for the money, they don't. They try to find a reasonable explanation as to what happened. We're dealing with unexplainable injuries, broken bones, and of course when we turn to the people that we thought were entrusting and protecting our loved ones, they have no answers. So we have to go get the answers and have to ask those hard questions about what happened. And we relish that, we relish the opportunity, and it takes a lot of hard work and dedication. I know Michael, David, our staff, is truly dedicated to focusing on eradicating nursing home abuse, assisted living, wrongful death, hospital malpractice, and everything in between.
And I'm really, I think, a perfect example. I had my 93-year-old husband who had been married for 46 idyllic years, wound up in a first-class rehabilitation center. And I never left his side. 30 days, slept in the bed to watch. And I found so many things. I mean, they were so nice, but they were short on help, and I would watch, what kind of medicine are you giving him? That's not the right medicine. If I had not been there, he probably would have passed away earlier and in pain. And so I'm a big advocate for you, because I know, now most people won't take that time and spend, the time I had, but it was the most precious thing in my life, and I knew I had to be there. Now, if you can't be there, you have to hire someone to be there. And I think if the facility knows you're there, they're going to be a lot better.
Right.
Sorry.
No, you're exactly right, and I'm so sorry to hear that. We hear so many stories and tragic stories and losses that I can't tell you every single day. It's something new. But you're right. You would think it's counterintuitive almost that we're paying all of this money for appropriate care, which we're entitled to under the Florida legislature. The Florida legislature actually carved out a Bill of Rights and resident rights that every single nursing home resident is entitled to. One of them being appropriate health care, free from abuse or neglect. I mean, actual deep inalienable rights that you have. And you would think that the staff that's being paid to protect these residents or elderly or loved ones are supposed to be doing their jobs, but you almost have to, like you said, hire someone else. If you can't physically be in the building, don't ignore the fact that your loved one could be subject to abuse, neglect. Look for classic signs of bruising, broken bones. Of course, that's an extreme scale there, but anything that you see, feel free to question it. You should go directly to the nursing home and to their director or to their administration, and they should have questions. And if they don't, please, we encourage our listeners and your listeners to call us, because we will find the answers.
Right, and if they're having a problem, I think, and I know you have a free consultation at the beginning just to see who's crazy. And I have to say that because sometimes people who do love their loved one are crazy. They don't really know what they're talking about, and a good consultation with you could say, well, yeah, that's the way it is, and give them some good points. And then there are other times where, yes, we have a case, I've got to come and talk to you right away. So let me tell everybody again. Our guest is Will SARUBBI, SARUBBI II. He is a trial attorney, and he is with Senior Justice Law Firm. Now, get your pencils out. Remember, it says Pencil Talk Radio. And so, remember, you can go on the web, seniorjustice.com. It's a great name, seniorjustice.com.
Thank you.
And the phone number is 561-717-0817. Mark it down. People have terrible things happen and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't go to the web. Go to someone who you know and who we appreciate. When you're on with our organization, ANITA FINLEY, I don't play this game casually. I make sure that the people who we have here are really what they say, and I appreciate your coming in, Will. I want to now go to, all right, so somebody has had a problem. They make a phone call to you. Will you tell us the steps of what happens, please?
Oh, of course. And this is exactly how it happens. Mom, dad has fallen in the facility, or even worse, mom has died in the facility. And what we do is we immediately start to gather those important facts. We meet with the families so that we can conduct a thorough investigation as to what happened, because sometimes, although there are accidents in the facility, we want to make sure that we're able to bring a lawsuit or a cause of action against the facility for either a fall, a bed sore that we talked about. There's malnutrition that we haven't talked about, and other things that perhaps is not necessarily top of mind that you would think would be nursing home abuse. So from there, we get our facts together, and we prepare to file what's called a notice of intent. We gather medical records. We spend a lot of time putting together a notice of intent, and in Florida, there's a 75-day pre-suit period where we contact the other side, and it actually is mandated. It's mandatory for us to have unsworn statements and mediations in order to potentially resolve the case before filing a lawsuit. And I know that's really important for a lot of the families who have been victims of nursing home abuse. They're afraid of filing a public lawsuit because we all know that you could look this up in a Palm Beach County docket. If you were to file a lawsuit, it's going to be very public. So that allows us one chance to resolve it confidentially, but if that is unsuccessful, which sometimes it is unsuccessful, we file that lawsuit and we take on those big insurance companies. We take on those nursing home chains that have millions and millions of dollars being pumped into these facilities every single year. And part of our strategy is to show that they are spending a lot of money, but just not on the right things. And that there's a lot of money and a lot of orders being sent from the top that are just being miscommunicated or just not followed. And that's how accidents happen.
Well, we have a lot of people watching you. Dan Verity, Tracy Hardy, Seth Levy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Right. Well, it's coming to a point, though, where I think the word is out. And the problem that I think that we've all realized is that maybe home care is the best. And you can't afford home care. That's the problem. All the facilities have all these very expensive, apparatus and x-rays and things that you need. But if you can't have them at home, you better well take care of them. Now, you've been talking about nursing homes. Let's move over to the assisted living. Let's move over to hospitals.
Right.
Because there's all short of help. It's not as though these were little babies that I don't know what, and this isn't your field, but I wonder if there's also abuse with babies in hospitals and places. I don't know that.
Gosh, it's certainly possible. I have not personally seen an abuse of that age if we're talking about minor children. So
I'm talking about little babies or something.
Babies,
that's true.
I haven't, but what we have seen is we've seen sexual abuse of the elderly. And I know that is a topic that David talked about
Yes, he did.
a few months ago. But shifting to assisted living facilities, what we're really seeing now, Anita, are families that are staying away from nursing homes because, like I said, there is the knowledge is out there that a lot of these facilities are understaffed, they are just not properly maintained, and they don't want to put their loved one in that type of environment. So what are they doing? They're Googling assisted living facilities, and you would think that word assisted living is going to be the same, if not better, than a nursing home, but really the standard of care is much lower. And I have a case right now, and just to give us a real life example.
That was my next question. I'd like to hear about some of your cases.
Sure.
That's good.
So an assisted living case that we have right now here in South Florida is a gentleman who was severely demented, had a history of falls, lived with his now surviving spouse here in the Southwest Florida region. They knew that he could no longer live at home like you talked about, but she had done her best. She was actually a nurse for 30 years, and she could not prevent this, aging process from happening. So she, like any loving wife would do, she put her husband into an assisted living facility instead of a nursing home. However, she was completely lured to the assisted living facility because what they did was they said, we can put him in what's called a memory care unit. And a memory care unit is supposed to be somewhat of a higher care level facility that is going to be more suitable to look after residents with severe dementia, that have unsteady gait, that are prone to falling. And they actually hired a marketing administrator to go out and go to her home, talk with her about how we're so much better suited to prevent him from hurting himself versus a nursing home or other facilities around the community. So long story short, he's admitted, and within 24 hours he falls alone in the hospital, has a brain bleed, and dies several days later. And we actually found out through discovery, which is ongoing right now, that he suffered a second fatal fall, adding yet more injury to the brain bleed. The hospitalists saw him within a few hours of the falls. He was there for less than 7 days. He died 10 days later. These are the cases that we're seeing.
Breaks my heart to hear
it's
this.
Terrible. It's a tragedy, and we are here to fight for those families and families that we have not reached yet. But if there is one person listening today that can hear our message today, if we can prevent one person from not putting a loved one into a facility, or just to the more appropriate facility in this case versus an assisted living and a nursing home, it's worth the message.
I was thinking how many times people do fall out of bed, and I'm sure they had the rails up or they didn't have the rails up. That's the problem. Right. And I always thought, why don't we just have beds all over the floors? No, but of course then
a bunch of pillows, right?
Right, right. But no, it's a very serious situation because falls. It probably is the most preventive thing you can do. You can really set up things that the person won't fall. But it happens, and then once they fall, if they break their hip, and then they go into surgery. But this person didn't even have a chance.
Right. This person, unfortunately, our client's late husband did not have a chance because you know why? The facility didn't have a plan. They were too busy thinking about profits over people, pumping residents into their facilities, not having adequate staff to watch. And you would be amazed, Anita, to see the arguments that they raise, the defense firms, in suit now. An assisted living facility saying, it just based on that hypothetical we just talked about, marketers coming in and administrators saying, we can take care of him, just don't put him in a nursing home. You don't need to put him in a nursing home. We can prevent this from happening. And then of course you file a lawsuit, and now you're sitting across the table from these defense lawyers who say, well, assisted living facility is a much lower level of care, and essentially equating it to a landlord-tenant relationship. So now we have an elderly gentleman who was admitted for the exact reason. They knew he was a fall risk. They didn't take steps to prevent it. It was no game plan. They knew this was going to happen. And then they have the audacity, once we file a lawsuit, to give them an opportunity to make this right. And what do we face? This is just a landlord-tenant relationship. Good luck. And a lot of those arguments are presented up front, but Michael, David, and I have worked tirelessly to show that we will take it all the way in our trials. We're on multiple trial dockets, and we've had a lot of discovery depositions and discovery that we've found out from a lot of these facilities here in Florida, that amazingly those arguments just seem to fall to the wayside after we've initiated a lawsuit, and we will continue to do that.
Well, I will tell you that Lawrence Lampert, who is a wonderful guy, and he does work in nursing homes, not as a, he is an optician, and he works in different ways. So he's very smart, and he really helps an awful lot of things. So I think he's an optometrist, actually. I don't remember the term, but he's a wonderful guy, and he helps with people who are there with their vision after they had a stroke. So he's listening. Seth Levy actually has a mobile unit that goes all over. So these are healthcare people, and I'm glad that you're talking about it. Let me just repeat your name again, and it's Bill SARUBBI, SARUBBI, the second. You're a trial attorney with Senior Justice Law Firm, and all of you can get on the web and see their great site, seniorjustice.com. And I know the three lawyers. I just met Will this morning, but you do speak exactly what happens. Now, let me just say this, though. I don't want people to think there are not really good places. I have a grandson who's taking care of his other grandmother who's over 100 years old up in Michigan. And they're at a place, and I'll tell the name because it's a very good place. It's the Arden Courts. They're all over the country.
Sure, we're very familiar.
And they have memory care. And they position it. Now, probably things can happen there too, but they're really built for that. See, some of these other places, it was an add-on. But Arden Courts has pods, little memory pods. Maybe they have 6 people in each pod. And they're very expensive, but they do a great job. So it's not that there are plenty of places out there that mean well, can do good jobs, but it's still, these are accidents because you're dealing with someone in bed who most of the time is defenseless. And you need to either have someone there, or you have to pay someone there who, when they're off duty, that they're on duty with your loved one. It's a very serious situation, and if you don't have money, it's worse.
I couldn't agree with you more, and unfortunately not every family comes from a certain background where they would be able to afford the Arden Courts or something similar. And what I would encourage, and I think David may have touched on this as well, there is a website and multiple resources where you can go online, and I believe one of them is nursinghomecompare.com, where you can see actual reviews of families that are rating these facilities. Of course, there are other ways that you can go on to review whether a facility is below average, average, or above average. But again, the most constant thing that our viewers should listen to, regardless of what facility you're in, be present, ask questions, make sure that if you believe that something is going on or that something happened before you got there, ask questions. And if we could be of assistance, feel free to give us a call. I know that you mentioned our number. I would encourage the viewers to visit our websites with a lot of frequently asked questions that we have, not only on nursing homes, but like you said, assisted living facilities, hospitals, and everything that you could possibly imagine. Our website is a wealth of information.
I wanted to have you pick up on something you said. I never think in terms of malnutrition.
Right.
Tell us about that. So what happens? How does that happen?
So a typical example of malnutrition is you want to make sure that when your loved one is admitted to the facility, that they're not only monitoring whether or not they're going to fall or prevent bed sores. You want to make sure that they're getting the proper nutrition. And not everyone has the same diets. And because the nursing homes are taking so many residents, things like puree diets versus solid foods, or supplements and non-supplements, there are specific, everyone has different food allergies. But if I'm a registered nurse at a facility and I'm responsible for numerous charts throughout the day, upwards of 25, 30 residents, I may not have time to go through every single chart to know if Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones needs a certain supplement. And sometimes that could be fatal, because if they're not getting what's prescribed by the doctors, a lot of times they're discharged from the hospital saying that there is a physician order that they need a certain type of food, and if they don't get that, they can lose weight rapidly. And sometimes it's too late, because if you are combining malnutrition with walking to the restroom, as everyone needs to do, what happens? We fall, we break our hip because we're dehydrated, because we're malnourished. Those are preventable, certainly preventable tragedies that we see all the time, and that's something that we want to look for. And the classic signs are weight loss. complaints of pain, stomach issues, because they're not getting the proper food, because it could not be actually agreeing with their bodies. So those are things that you should look for in malnutrition.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think most people I don't think they think the food's being served and isn't
Right.
that great, it's good food, that's
Right.
their biggest problem. Is it good or not?
Right.
How does it taste?
Sure.
But I do remember being in a hospital at one point. My husband had a hip operation, and I was there tending to him, and this many years ago, and they're in the it was a semi-private room, and there was an elder couple, I think the man, I think they were in their 90s, and the wife would come, but at 5 o'clock she left, and I remember he could not function to eat the food himself. So I wound up feeding him because no one was there to feed him.
You're kidding.
See, no, because and they would just take the food away, which is inexcusable.
Right.
So everything that you talk about, Will, is so true.
Right.
And I'm so glad you're here, and I know that we're going to be running out of time, but we want you to come back again, because every time someone hears something like this, I just want to repeat it. There are very, very good places, and it isn't the place so much as the staff. The staff, there are very good staff members too, but remember when you have that person there, they're really at your mercy.
Right.
And you can't go home at night and sleep, I think, well, unless you've taken care of any of the charges that you're responsible for. You do the best you can. Sure, someone might slip and fall, and maybe it has nothing to do with you and it wasn't your fault.
Right.
And I'm sure a good lawyer will find that out, that it was just one of these flukes. And I'm sure there have been cases where they call you, but it's not really anything that you can follow up on.
All the time. We have cases where,
Oh, yeah, we did. We'll get you back another time.
Please.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so much
being
for
here,
having me.
Will. Thank you.
So much.